Great. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, all. We have with us today Ms. Keima Gardiner, Waste Management Specialist under the Multilateral Environmental Agreements Unit of the Environmental Policy and Planning Division of the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, Ms. Gardiner. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much, Derek. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, it's our pleasure. We're really happy to have you here. So, the goal of this activity is to explore how the BCRC Caribbean Digital Learning Hub, which was launched recently, is being used in your national context, what's working well, and what opportunities you see for the future to advance your national priorities. So we wanted to do a bit of a Q&A here. So let me start off. What do you see as the main opportunities for stakeholders in your country to benefit from the Digital Learning Hub?
So I think for Trinidad and Tobago, the Digital Learning Hub really is a central repository of user-friendly, easily accessible, interactive, engaging, self-paced information, and is of course of a really high quality as well. So the hub in itself fills a gap in the national space, and also the regional level as well. It's quite revolutionary in that regard. And so the ability to actually be able to strengthen capacities on chemicals and waste management has been and will be really, really useful for us as well. To fill that gap. And I think as well, the hub itself also lends to, increased compliance of our commitments under the various multilateral environmental agreements that the country has signed on to. With increased capacity of different stakeholders, we're going to have, greater fulfillment of those obligations as we move along. No, so that's one like the key central area for us. And then apart from that as well, it is digital in nature. So it means that the reach is going to be broader in terms of geographical coverage. It's more accessible. There are different topics on the platform as well, which is also good in terms of broadening your knowledge base. For example, if you specialize in a particular area, you have the opportunity to advance in other spaces as well. And so then based on that is also the opportunity in that it also has a wide cross section of stakeholders it also targets as well. And then I think in terms of the different topics, it also allows the opportunity um, for identifying synergies and interlinkages across industries and sectors as well, which again also lends to us fulfilling our commitments under these MEEs. So as an example, for example, if you have a particular chemical that you're familiar with, that you work within your space, so let's say DDT as an example, pretty familiar for many. You may know it in in an agricultural space, for example, as an insecticide. But then there's also the health side of it, where it's used for disease vector control. But then there's also the health implications as well. And so with those sort of cross linkages, similarly for POPs, you may typically, let's say, know persistent organic pollutants or POPs being, let's say, pesticides, without the understanding that they're also found in industrial chemicals. And so they can be found in typical items, consumer goods, your vehicles, your textiles, for example, as flame retardants. So they're either to reduce the flammability of products or to reduce the spread of fire once it has started. But I think just those cross learnings and understandings also helped in increasing greater engagements and partnerships across various sectors and industries. And like, as I mentioned before, thus helping in terms of actual implementation of our obligations to find solutions under the conventions.
Hey, wow, that is very impressive from just listening it from how you've described it. I mean, a repository of information that would be kept updated
Yeah,
and certainly would gain the interest of several stakeholders at all
exactly.
levels of society and even academia as well for those who are
Correct.
pursuing varying interests in this field. But thank you
Correct.
so much for that. I mean, it sounds like something that I can see a number of stakeholders across, not just at a national level, but regionally as well, as we work
Exactly.
together to address a number of the concerns associated with things like POPs and of course other chemicals, hazardous
Correct.
chemicals.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
So what challenges might stakeholders face though when engaging with the Digital Learning Hub?
I think, let's say outside of the typical technological challenges, you might have digital literacy issues, difficulties, and just generally be able to navigate the platform in a digital sense, connectivity issues, etc. I think one of the really, really, and we've seen it in the past as well, one of the potential challenges would be competing priorities. We are small countries with human resource constraints in many instances. So a lot of us wear many hats. And so the time available to actually fully complete the programs might be a potential challenge. And it's looking here that you might be very interested in actually getting it done. But if you have different professional and personal commitments, that might potentially get in your way, right? And then outside of that as well, I think it probably also will be linked to your motivation while you're actually doing the course. So granted that there might be interest in some instances, there might be other reasons while you're doing the course. And so that personal motivation as well could potentially create challenges in terms of you fully completing your programs moving forward. But I think outside of that, honestly, the materials are really relevant to the national circumstance and of course regionally as well. It's well curated, well organized, and very, just well done.
Yeah, so Ms. God, thanks for that response. I mean, that what struck me was that point you made about the resource constraints, and I, having myself lived and worked across the Caribbean, and in particular the relatively smaller island developing states, like in the Eastern Caribbean,
Yeah.
they have significant challenges. I mean, their responsibilities are like any other country,
Yeah.
but with significantly fewer human resources.
Yep.
So those that competition for priority and their time is an issue, and certainly one of the objectives of the DLH. And I'm happy to hear how well it was done, is to make it more attractive and easy
Yes.
to use. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think once you get started, it's easy to get hooked on it, but honestly, if you don't have the time, there's only so much you could do in a day, reality. So,
Yes, and there's, again, as you correctly said, their responsibilities are so broad.
yeah.
Um, so, but on that actual topic, so which communication channels or networks you believe are most effective in reaching these stakeholders and raising awareness about the DLH?
I think we certainly live in a digital age, and leveraging the digital learning hub, that digital side of it. Certainly, new media, transition away from traditional media, going towards new media, and particularly social media. We've had in the past, for example, other communication campaigns where we've seen a lot of traction with social media, using, different aspects and avenues of it. And even in terms of social media as well, we have the opportunity to tailor the information to different target audiences. So that's a really useful benefit. And I think just outside of that, looking at using different networks to try to spread the information and awareness about the DLH. And so this could be, of course, from the national to the international scale. So nationally, we have various organizations, various bodies where we're able to tap into that. We have, for example, National Training Institute. So essentially, any entity that is involved with e-learning, or has a similar hub or that's involved in training, it'd be really useful to create linkages with them. So we have, for instance, a national training agency where potentially, let's say, we can have some of the modules converted to Caribbean vocational qualification, CVQs, just to increase the attractiveness. We have civil society also has a really important role to play. We have associations like farm associations, just trying to network and get to the key stakeholders. And then even at the regional level as well, we have research institutes, trainings, we have academia, we have the universities across the region, and of course, nationally, Trinidad and Tobago. We have as well, like Cardi, for instance, the Caribbean Agriculture Development Research Institute. So there are different avenues. And then even scaling up from there to the international scale, of course, it is linked to the conventions. So creating some sort of synergy with the actual conventions themselves, the Basel, Rotterdam Stockholm Convention Secretariat. They also offer training courses, so trying to create linkages there. Also with similar UN partners. So we have UNITAR, for example, the United Nations Institute for Training and Research, or the affiliated partners, UNCC Learn. We have FAO, eLearn Academy. So there's a lot, I think, of opportunities for us to try to create those interlinkages, to try to promote the work that we're doing within the region and, of course, at the national scale as well, on the platform.
Okay, so opportunities abound. I
Yes, they
imagine
do.
it's to figure out how to navigate it
Yes.
amidst all of that activity and all of those options, to find that sweet spot, so to speak, to get
Correct.
to those key stakeholders. But just as important, you mentioned that stakeholder ecosystem is also
Mhm.
equally important beyond even the primary stakeholders.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what factors have contributed to the high uptake in Trinidad and Tobago, relatively speaking? And how can we encourage more stakeholders to complete the full program? I mean, you yourself clearly have a significant amount on your plate. So, you can identify with your colleagues in the rest of the region of the challenges they would have as well. What would be your recommendations for to get them to sign on and to engage
Yeah.
and to complete the full program on the digital learning hub?
So I mean, so the DLH launched recently, right? So we're still in the process, of trying to create traction, etc., around it. But I think, I mean, everybody wants something at the end of the day for the work that you're putting in, your effort. So I think having incentives for sure, and whether that incentive is having a certificate, which of course the DLH does offer. But for instance, if that certificate is linked or endorsed by some sort of internationally recognized body. So we spoke about before, for example, the BRS Secretariat, the FAO. If perhaps let's say, there's signatures from those agencies as well, then you get this globally acclaimed recognition of your competencies and training at the end of completing the program. So that's one. And of course, as well, even in terms of certification, having probably even different levels, right? So there are different modules you can take within the program, but if you complete the full program, perhaps your certification might look different to somebody who just did one module, or maybe they may not be certified at all just to complete only one module. So there are different avenues to take. I think also as well in terms of incentives, we also have the potential to look at things like gamification and behavioral psychology. And so, like reward systems. And what the example I like to use here is Duolingo, that maintaining your streak, that model. I think, people gravitate towards it. So if there's a similar
Yes.
way to integrate something like that within the program as well, I think that could also be very useful. And then perhaps even as another incentive, looking at, for example, providing future benefits. So let's say a discount for an upcoming course, whether on a BCRT platform in the future or affiliated partners as well. We mentioned some of them earlier, incentives, incentivizing as much as possible. And then I think probably outside of that, probably from the institutional perspective, it's if let's say the courses on the platform are mandatory. So mandatory if you are an intern, you're incoming into an organization, or if you're seeking a promotion, then you have to complete this course, for your career advancement to be able to get to that next stage. It's mandatory. And then even inside there as well is the opportunity to make it competitive as well. So if it's a group of colleagues within an organization undertaking the course, there might be leaderboards, to get a little bit of
Yeah.
competition, to make it competitive, to make it, a little bit attractive and engaging as well for stakeholders to join in. And then I think as well, probably just as another example would be kind of linked to a previous point I made in terms of having it as a prerequisite for, let's say, another program that's offered by either the BCRC in the future or one of the affiliated partners again. So you have to complete these courses to be able to register. And this could potentially be for even a paid course, a free course, but in other words, it has to be done in advance. The courses on the program, on the platform, have to be done in advance before you could actually register for these courses. So just some ideas in terms of how to potentially, try to create that attraction with the DLH.
Excellent suggestions. And yes, you've given me, I myself am on Duolingo and
Yep.
I get those notifications, which sometimes could be bordering on bullying. I'm
Yeah.
jokingly. But no, these are excellent suggestions. I have no doubt that the BCRC Caribbean would explore the ones that they haven't already been put
Yes.
into place or are putting into place. But I
Yeah.
do see where those could be effective, given the varying types of stakeholders and circumstances and challenges
Exactly.
and difficulties with priorities and workload balancing that they have
Yeah.
throughout our region.
Yeah.
So how can institutions or networks in Trinidad and Tobago champion the DLH to sustain and deepen engagement further to what you've shared with us?
So I keep suggesting or promoting, for consideration, looking at trying to integrate the DLH into existing training capacity building programs. So we have in certain organizations where there are routine training programs, and it could be for, again, for persons coming on board, for interns, etc. So we have, for instance, in Trinidad and Tobago, our Customs and Excise Division, they have a training program that they do, I think just for interns, but it could also be for existing staff as well, perhaps as refreshers. So that's one potential avenue to have that fully integrated there. Similarly as well, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, the name changed recently, so
Yeah.
excuse me, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries also has their extension training information
Right.
services divisions where the extension officers are also trained. So I think, again, there are relevant aspects from the platform that are directly linked and aligned to their mandates that would work really well in
Mhm.
trying to integrate it into their organizations. And then I think as well, if there's a possibility of trying to align the content on the DLH with your existing mandates, your visions, etc., as an organization, that could be a really useful way as well to try to extend the institutional engagement with the platform. So, for instance, my ministry, the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, we are the focal point for the chemicals and waste MEAs. And so, if we can promote and showcase how the DLH is actually aligned to the national environmental goals, to us supporting the environmental commitments under the MEAs, I think, and then of course promoting the use of the DLH as a tool to actually further those. I think that's a really useful way as well to actually have it better integrated and incorporated within organizations.
I love those suggestions. I mean, very powerful. I mean, I can see that, taking a bit of a stakeholder mapping
Hmm.
approach to connect the dots, because you tend to find that there is um, overlap and shared objectives amongst the various agencies, ministries, programs, not just nationally, but even regionally.
Exactly.
And then also in terms of really relating the impact of these protocols and these treaties and these MEAs to the on the ground objectives, I
Correct.
think is another excellent
Correct.
suggestion. And it the benefits would be quite significant
Yep.
in getting people to see cause and effect, connect the
Mhm.
dots, and hopefully promote even further collaboration across the various sectors and
Exactly.
agencies, which
Exactly.
in resource limited uh, areas like ours, that just makes a lot of sense. So thank you so much for that. Those are excellent points.
Thank you.
So finally, what is the one feature of the BCRC Caribbean Digital Learning Hub that you find most valuable or appealing?
So, as I mentioned before, the platform itself offers so much, and it really is a diverse learning experience platform in that the educational content there, it's so engaging. There's so many different aspects with flip cards, there are flip books, there's embedded videos and integrated resources and links and pop-up links, etc. And also like links to the technical guidelines developed under the conventions, links to articles as well. So there's a lot that the platform itself really offers. But I think for me, my standout feature would be that it is Caribbean centric. And I love that about the platform because essentially there are success stories, there are case studies, there's data and information from the Caribbean, from islands or countries within the region, which of course isn't typical for platforms like this, right? It's rare essentially to find information from our region being showcased on a platform like this, usually next to none. So I think for me, the fact that there are practical examples from the region, and as well is also you can see the on the ground application of the tools and methodologies that are actually showcased on the platform. So, for example, like how to conduct an inventory, you're actually seeing inventory results being featured on the platform. And so that interlinkage, I think, makes it very, very appealing and a lot more relatable as well. And so that for me really is a standout feature. And I also appreciate as well that it's linked to our Stop the Pops campaign, which was a predecessor campaign that we had on persistent organic pollutants. And so having that connectivity and sustainability as well is also really useful. So,
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm happy to hear how you related this, because this was the intent,
hmm.
to make sure that it was truly a hub that pulled all of the relevant and pertinent information
Yeah.
in a way that benefited the all levels of stakeholders. And certainly it being Caribbean centric, because you're
Mhm.
absolutely right. Being on these types of learning platforms, you typically get an international flavor that is
Correct.
dominated by, the developed world or the larger countries. When in truth and in fact, we as the Caribbean, regardless of our size, we have a role to play, right?
Correct.
As individual countries, but even more importantly, as a region, which is the beauty about this. It's pulling us together digitally, but it's meant to also literally pull us together
Yeah.
to get that multiplier effect from combining our resources in a collaborative way.
No, it's true. And I think even as well, so having those data and figures and stuff, it also allows the opportunity to get contemporary information of what is happening in the country. So you get that idea of the national status. And then it also allows for comparisons across, amongst countries as well. So it's really engaging and useful. And I think, of course, no fault to the other platforms that they may not have the information available. We are doing the work in the region. And so it's good to actually showcase and feature what is being done. You also have photos of persons in the Caribbean region as well. So it's even more, it's a lot more, it's relatable, it feels like it's like home essentially. So
Yes, yes, yes. And I suspect too, if you were to be from outside the region, there's quite a lot for the rest of the world to learn about us and what we're
agreed.
doing.
Agreed,
Yes,
exactly.
of
Exactly.
course. Well, Keima, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure having this interview with you.
Yes,
We
it has been
appreciate
lovely.
your insights, your praises for the BCRC Caribbean Digital Learning Hub. And we look forward to continued working together to advance the objectives under all of the conventions and MEAs.
Great. Thank you so much, Derek. This has been very, very quite engaging and fun discussion, I think. I really look forward to other users engaging with the DLH as well as we go forward.
Thank you very much. All right.